Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hollywood Critics Association Bel-Air Aftershow. I'm your host, Nikki Fowler, and I'm joined by my amazing co-host, John Rocha.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Nikki. How are you?
Good to see you, as always. So, just a spoiler alert, we're going to be breaking down all of episode 7 of Peacock's dramatic new series, Bel-Air. So if you have not seen episode 7, please rewind out of this video and head back over after you've seen the episode, because we're going to be talking all about every juicy detail and every spoiler, and we don't want to ruin it for you. So also make sure to like and subscribe and leave us comments. We love feedback. We'd love to know how you're enjoying the show, as well as, how you're enjoying our reviews. So we're going to just jump into a little recap on episode 7, which is Payback's a B. And let's just say in this episode, we see quite a bit of drama, but a whole lot of love, as well as quite a few secrets being kept. Lisa's father, after announcing that he's running for DA in the last episode, is now asking her to take a step back from the Banks family and from Will until after the election. Uncle Phil is also asking Will to hold back on moving things forward with Lisa so he doesn't divulge his secret on how he got to Bel-Air and run into issues with Lisa and her father, who is the chief of police. One eye roll later, and Lisa sneaks out to a party that Will has planned to get Carlton on track after feeling left out at school with his old friends. Carlton is now standing up to Connor, and he's having a come to Jesus moment on his blackness and has reached his fill on Connor's racist treatment towards everyone of color. Ashley filmed some racy content for herself, but it made its way onto the cloud at her influencer house, and Cairo, her influencer house manager, re-edited the footage and made it live. She's now going viral with her thirsty chef content, and she's livid trying to track him down and get it removed. That is until she realizes Victoria's Secrets has struck an interest in her, and she ponders on whether to take endorsement money at a cost to her ethics in order to monetize and gain popularity. Uncle Phil is hiding the fact that he's putting more money into his campaign and not asking Vivian for her consent because it's his money. And in turn, Aunt Viv is heading out with no notice to an art show in San Diego, where she happens to leave out the fact that steamy Reed Broderick is planned to be there too. Jeffrey drops the news to Phil, who then surprises Viv and Reed at the art fair. Viv and Phil have a huge heart-to-heart, which has Viv, quote-unquote, saving herself and simultaneously teaching Hillary to get herself out of her own sticky situation. Carlton is feeling lost after an altercation with Connor on the lacrosse field, and what better way to fix everything than with a house party that he and Will collaborate on. All is well until Connor, aka Barbecue Becky, places a 911 call that has the party getting shut all the way down, and Carlton has yet another lesson on what it means to be Black in Bel-Air with no privilege, being confronted by the police in his own home. So, another juicy episode. What were your thoughts, John?
I have to say, the episode, initially I was a little bit like, okay, why is this happening? They seem to be fabricating a little bit of the dissension between Viv and Phil here. All of a sudden, Phil taking money out without asking her permission, that leads to this confrontation. But what we get in that confrontation is a really well-written scene, a fantastic exploration of the complexity of relationships, especially when you get older, how you look back on your life and in certain decisions, certain decisions were made back when you were younger that affected you now, and you look back on those decisions and wonder if they were the right decisions, and you want to lay a little blame on the other person, should have known better. So this is the way relationships can be. It can be quite complex. You can go into your own psyche, into their psyche, and trying to figure all this out. So I really appreciated that. I liked seeing Will and Carlton back, connected now, as people have been waiting for. It seems like it's going to keep going forward. And even when Carlton's kind of questioning things, not sure where he belongs, a moment pops up for him to really stand up for himself. And I really like that. But then the Lisa Will stuff comes right into his face, and he's going to have to come to terms with that as well. So I like that they're adding these dramatic elements to these characters so that you never feel 100% comfortable that that character is okay where they're at. You just never do. And I think that's great drama and fun drama to explore in the episode for sure. So I enjoyed seeing a lot of this episode, a lot of the scenes in this episode, and I enjoy how much these characters are connecting with each other more and more. I may not always buy the setups to get to these connections, but the connections themselves, when they happen, really have an air of authenticity and connectability for the viewer.
Absolutely. It does keep you guessing. I always look forward to each week getting your relationship advice. I have you pegged as AKA relationship doctor Rocha.
Yeah.
So no, you've been giving some really great insight into, just the relationship factor and all of these different characters and, just how they relate. So we're going to get, into Vivian and Phil a little bit later, because there's tons of things to talk about with that. So we can start out with, just talking about Hillary. And, the show kind of opens with her at her influencer house, and she's having this really, really interesting conversation with one of the influencers just on, her video is going viral without her consent. And I believe his name is Kyra, right? The influencer manager. I thought it was Kyra. Something like that. And, he basically took it off the cloud. She was kind of experimenting in some racy outfit and wanted that kind of for herself, just testing the waters. So here's someone, basically takes her content, makes it go viral. It's doing well. And the influencer is explaining to her that, hey, you should be grateful. I got a book deal from Oprah, and that's just how the system works. And Hillary, kind of goes on to explain, the hypersexualization of Black women, how there's this, standard that, this is okay and this is acceptable with Black women, and, that Black women have to do this sometimes to kind of get put on. And she's saying that, she really doesn't have the privilege to do that because we are already hypersexualized. So she just doesn't need this added, flame, which later we learn in the episode, she starts to kind of, negotiate with it. It got her attention. Is this something that, she's willing to allow to happen to get endorsement deals? And for me, that says a lot about, some of the influencers that are watching this in real life, where they're seeing, the racier people sometimes getting access and getting endorsements. And they feel like, is this something that I have to compromise myself on? So what did you think of what did you think of all that?
Well, listen, one of the joys of a good show is that you get to see the complexities of a character, right? And certainly Hillary and Coco's doing a fantastic job acting with this character. And because there are multiple levels here to Hillary and conflicting ideologies, conflicting points of views, depending on the situation. And you can fall into a trap of judging a character like this. But the other option is to kind of sit back and watch this character and maybe see some of your own conflicting ideologies, maybe question some of your own ethics or your own, what would you do in these situations? And I like that about this character because, like I said, she's being portrayed so well here so that you're able to dive in to what she's navigating here. Initially, of course, she's violent. She's essentially was violated here. Now, I don't know if it's in the contract, because Hillary at times is a bit about, come save me, daddy. And I love that Viv put a big highlight on that, a big neon sign on that, and had her like handle her business. And so she was kind of defaulting to initially asking her father, but then she has to go and handle the business herself. And in the handling, Jazz comes along with her, this new romance that's kind of popping up here. But then Hillary kind of turns on Jazz because of the connections to Victoria's Secret, because of the ability to promote her brand and build her brand quickly and see some cash. So this is an interesting place that she is. And Nikki, I don't know if you've read that the Kardashians article that was in Variety the last couple of days, but it's so interesting to take a look at that and navigate that. Sure, it's easy to be an influencer when you're rich. There's a lot more things that are open to you, but Hillary's in a unique situation in that she really wants to stand out on her own away from her family. So what are the concessions that she's willing to make in order to make that happen? And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, when someone is climbing up that ladder, do not depend on them to be consistent, because they can let you down. They can in one moment complain about someone all day and all night, and then the next day strike a deal with that person because it helps them in their overall brand. And Hillary lies to herself a little bit by saying, once I get in with them, I can show them my real content. And that's not what they sign you for. And they never sign you for your real content. So this is the thing that she's eventually going to have. We see a crossroads coming here, and she's hurting some people along the way, including herself, really, Nikki. And I'm looking forward to this breakdown and the acting that's going to happen from Coco when that breakdown happens.
Yeah, ever since I saw that first scene with that influencer party or going away dinner, I knew that there was going to be problems. And everything that you mentioned is so relevant. I kind of saw excerpts from the article. I didn't feel, I didn't want to read it, but I did see it, kind of trending where, comments were made about a lot of people. I believe it was Kim Kardashian mentioned something about people don't want to work these days.
Yeah,
and so people were absolutely trending, went viral, where people were just saying, what do you mean? There's people, dying in the Ukraine right now with their children. And, of course, that's not what she meant. But, it was a little bit of tone deafness on that one. Yeah. But I thought it was interesting with Jazz, how basically Hillary was so quick to turn on him, to say it was really hurtful when she said, oh, why would I expect you to understand, why she would have this deal with Victoria's Secrets or want it, because she had to introduce him to Instagram. And that's, I just found that particularly hurtful. And, you could give some insight into, men and their reaction to things like that. But here he is putting himself out there. He just came to kind of DJ a bit maybe at the party. And so he ends up helping her, to find the influencer manager. And, he's a business owner. He basically has his record shop. He has multiple streams of income. And she just completely shut him down. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. So that kind of little romance has started to buzz and kind of went south really quick, where she was kind of tone deaf in her response to him.
Yeah, and I found that to be really interesting, that back and forth. You're right. And because Jazz has deceptively, and I wonder if this is the intention of the showrunners and the writers, he's intentionally been the character that does not need an arc. He is who he is. He knows who he is. And remember, he's the one that told Will in that first episode, this city can change you. Never forget where you came from. Never forget who you are. So he has been at times almost like this pillar, this foundation that other people, this rock almost, that other people are not. And clearly, Hillary is a person in flux right now, a person in transition. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know what she really wants. She doesn't know how to go 100, know how to get it 100%. She's not clear about it. So what happens with people who are insecure and unsteady and not sure, they lash out at the people that are secure and are steady because they're the truth tellers. And sometimes those unstable people are insecure, and only unstable in a way that's negative, but just unstable because they're not sure who they are really yet. They're not sure what they want to do yet 100%, not sure how to accomplish it. They get self-conscious when someone like that calls them out on their stuff. And so their initial reaction, because they're defensive, is to shoot to kill or shoot to a person down. And you saw that in that moment. And even when she offered him gas money, that was even more of an insult. And Jazz, a great moment there with that look at her like, what? You think I'm asking for gas money? I came here to have your back because I care about you. And you're going to try to throw money at me like I give a crap about money. And although she can judge him and whatever, he's a business owner. As you said, he is successful doing what he's doing. Just because he doesn't have an Instagram or social media presence doesn't mean he's not successful. And those are two different points of views slamming into each other. And I really enjoy that they're not afraid to kind of dive into these uncomfortable altercations that are happening with young people nowadays, certainly in this ever-changing technological environment,
Yeah, there's a lot that was, coming across in, Hillary with this opportunity. And, these opportunities are rare for women of color. And, back in 2015, I know that I just happened to do the research on how many Black women were invested in with 1 million or more in capital, and the number was like 15. It was about the number that of people could fit on my couch at home. And I'm like, no, I read that wrong. This is not right. This cannot be right. And Serena Williams has just come out recently, and she founded a VC firm because of this, because she had the same reaction recently, like, no, this has to be a typo. What is going on? So there's just an incredible lack of investment in women of color, and that translates over to influencers as well. I've mentioned on our review in the past, as far as Black TikTok, there's been a lot of outspoken influencers on them not getting a seat at the table. And I know Instagram just implemented, I saw maybe a day ago, they're implementing some new rule where when Black creators create a certain amount of a certain type of content, that it has to be credited, whether it's a dance or something. Because you'll see some influencers going on Jimmy Fallon doing like 20 dances, and all those 20 dances came from someone sitting at home not even able to monetize with it. So I love that they've included this into Hillary's role in character. And Coco is an influencer herself. She's a great actress, but she also has done like some YouTubes. She has her own influencer side, so it's great to see that.
So she's giving the interactions an even more of an air of authenticity, because she's actually been there. That's a great point, Nikki.
Yeah. So jumping back into this conversation early on with Aunt Viv encouraging Hillary basically to get out of the sticky situation with her influencer manager herself, it kind of shed some light on Vivian and what Vivian's going through right now on trying to explore her art again and kind of stand on her own 2 feet. We still don't know kind of what happened 15 years ago. They alluded to it again in this episode. But, we could kind of jump into Vivian and Phil. He's basically, you brought it up earlier, he's dumping money into his campaign, and, he deems it his money. So let's start with that dynamic of these secrets, and she's running off to San Diego, not divulging that, Reed will be there. Not that she had to, but so let's start off with the secret aspect.
Oof. Yeah, I mean, I love that his campaign manager came in and said, "You went with that, really? Your money? You went with that?" I mean, that's the truth there, right? I mean, like, once you're together, and especially, if your wife has sacrificed to raise your kids, she's walked away from her career, whether she chose to or you encouraged her to or whatever, however it happened, you took advantage of the fact that you could go off and build your career while she was taking care of the kids. So, mainly taking care of the kids while you helped when you could. So this idea that it's your money is one of the most ridiculous things in the world, because once it's a marriage and once you're both co-parenting and co-doing everything, this idea that it's your money when it's conveniently your money is a terrible tactic to take on so many. I mean, Phil in this episode, I gotta say, Phil in this episode making some phenomenal mistakes, not understanding his wife, not understanding Viv and what she needs, thinking more about what he thinks she needs, which is ironic because Viv calls him out for not thinking about what she needed 15 years ago. So complex, this relationship. Very interesting to break down. But certainly this scene between them two, you see her straight up like is hurt by this situation. It's hurt that he would put a line in the sand. And it seems odd given how much love they have between each other. But you got to get to a place in a show, and maybe they figured this was the best way through it to get to that place. But her reaction is very strong because clearly there are some underlying feelings of resentment, as she talks about later, between them in this situation. And although initially I didn't feel like she was going to be cheating on him, certainly her sitting at the bar at the end with Reed, now my mind is going to a number of different places. I hope they don't let her do that, because I think that's a weakness with such a strong character. But they're certainly setting up that there's friction here between these two. And Nikki, there's nothing like a campaign to expose friction between a couple, between two people in this universe.
Yeah. Absolutely. I also, with Vivian and Phil, I mean, you mentioned that they have such a, a strong bond, and it's
Yeah.
surprising that they are having these issues. But I think that that's really great for them to highlight that even in some of the most loving relationships, you still have this maybe this little ignorant tick of like, well, this is mine and that's yours, and it's unbelievable. But the vulnerability as a woman with Vivian, and to love someone and to be in this relationship and then to have them do something with that, it's such a raw donut feel for her, that she has no control over her own life. This is not the union that she expected. Those thoughts start running through her mind, like, do I even have a say in this marriage? So that was interesting. And then we had Jeffrey made another appearance, which was nice to see him as well. Well, he was sneaking around getting dirt on Reed Broderick, and he discovered that he basically, Uncle Phil even calls out Reed at the art fair, that he's known as a player, and he basically has taken a lot of quote unquote artists and had relationships with them. This is kind of what he alluded to. And is his interest in Aunt Vivian really ethical? And he just kind of just calls them out, which was very interesting. So I'll just show a visual of them at this this art fair. But the idea of Phil showing up and the love bombing that he was doing, it was so chaotic. Here it is, she's trying to stay focused on getting her career back, which is already, again, very vulnerable. And then to have your husband like doing this dance of like love bombing you, and it was just so inappropriate and just so distracting. And it's like he just let go of everything. Everything's on hold because he's panicking because of Steamy Reed.
Nikki, let me. I mean, you can speak this more than I can as a woman, but I'll say this: I have a very strong girlfriend. If I just showed up at a place thinking she couldn't handle her business or couldn't see through somebody, she would kick my ass out of that place. So to me, when I saw him show up, I was like, no, it is such a violation of her space. Kind of like, not necessarily similar, but you could say in both of these situations, both Hillary and Viv, the men in their lives, whether significant others or not, violated their space with what they thought was best for them, right? Kylo putting that video up, editing it himself to look a certain way, or probably had someone else edit it to look a certain way. And then you have Phil coming in and violating Viv's own personal space. She wants to do something for herself. She wants to go down and explore her painting again. She wants to just rediscover herself as an artist. And so she's going to do something for herself. Phil, eat a little bit of crow, sit there with your feelings in that house, because you caused this to happen by doing that my money crap and then investing their money into a campaign that if they lose, they're out a lot of money, and that could be damaging for them in the long run. Instead, he goes down there thinking he's a white knight to save her, and that exposes something that happened 15 years ago. When I saw him show up, I was like, that is such a wrong move for a man to do. You got to respect your woman's independence, your woman's strength. And if she's going to cheat on you, guess what? It wasn't that strong to begin with. So those are those things that you have to kind of come to terms with. And, but again, the show's great at leading you into the drama, and the drama is here and the conflict is here. Even though it makes you go, no, what are you doing? It's still good for the overall drama that you got here in the show. Yeah,
very true.
I mean, also, Nikki, if one of your boyfriends showed up at I'm sure you wouldn't be happy with that.
I'm just gonna laugh at that one, but I'm very vocal. I go kindergarten, school teacher on, if you're not doing right, I'm gonna let you know very, very eloquently, but I'm gonna let you know this is not appropriate. So I want to dive too into the comments with Well, I just want an excuse to show my sorry. But Vivian says she likes the way he makes her feel.
Mm,
And now we're getting, this is, business. Now it's very emotional. We,
yeah.
as women, we want to do well. We want to be successful. But sometimes, as Black women, I'm not speaking for all Black women,
Right.
but in all industries, because of the racism and the discrimination,
Right.
sometimes it feels like you're spinning your wheels, that you're doing 1,000% and you're not being seen for that. So I really love that they talk about the way that he makes her feel and being respected for what she does. Especially Vivian is, this gorgeous woman, drop dead gorgeous woman that just wants to be accepted for her art. And you have instances of quid pro quo. You have lots of people that want to say that they want to help you, but they really have alternative motives. It happens all the time.
Oh yeah.
So I understand Phil wanting to be protective and step in, because that's something that absolutely can happen, especially with Reed's track record. But yeah, so just interesting. I love that they put that in the episode, and kind of dove into the whole emotional side, because she can kind of get blinders on of, wow, this is someone respecting me, and she just may not even see that it might be wine time, but
Yeah.
sooner than you think, you'll be in a situation that it's going to be difficult to get out of.
Yeah, there are two different approaches. Men are consumed with the idea if they're a woman physically cheating on them, right? Of the woman they're with, sorry, physically cheating on them, right? Women are, for the most part, I'm generalizing here. I'm not trying to be offensive, but generalizing. Women fear fear an intimate or an emotional connection. That's more of a betrayal, at least from the women I've spoken to. And I may be speaking out of turn here, but that's so what we have here with Viv is so fascinating. She's not saying the way he makes love to me, I love the way he makes me feel. She's saying the way he talks about my paintings, the
Mm-hmm.
way I feel valued by his words for my contributions. And you juxtapose that with earlier in the episode when Phil said, "Hey, it's my money. I used my money. I didn't think you'd mind." That's an insult to Viv and her contributions to their household. And so
Mm-hmm.
you see the connections between these two moments. And so what she's basically saying is she doesn't feel valued by Phil. And remember, a couple episodes, he told her to keep it down in the public. So she's not only had to sacrifice her painting, she's also sacrificed elements of herself in order to help him get to this place. And so for him to pull something like that, it really is offensive deeply. And so her revealing to Phil in the blunt honesty, whatever she said, radical honesty,
Mm-hmm.
telling him, hey, this is what he does for me. This is what I enjoy about how I interact with him. And that's a lesson for Phil. And
Mm-hmm.
she sends him home. And I hope on the car ride home, because I've driven to San Diego to LA, it's 2.5 hours. I hope he's thinking about everything she said and really mulling it over and looking at his own actions and how he's going to make this right with her. Because even if she does flirt with this guy or whatever with Reed, the truth is she loves Phil deeply. And so
Mm-hmm.
he's got to step up to the plate here and solve this situation without using Jeffrey and his nefarious tactics. It's got to be Phil.
The fixer.
Yeah, the fixer, right.
Yeah, and she had so many important elements happening at this art fair. There was, a reporter there just wanted to speak to her. There's this fellowship that he's talking about to get her involved in. Lots of carrots dangling. So we don't know. We don't know if we can trust Reed, but it's interesting to see the whole dynamic. And yeah, I hope he does think about it on the car ride home.
Yeah. Well, Reed, like Kylo, right? There's
Mhm.
connections to them too. Reed kind of, as you said, might have some nefarious, or sorry, not an ulterior motive here with Viv in the long run. Same thing with Kylo and Hillary. So both these ladies got to figure out in their own way how to get through these situations and come out the other side in the positive. And we'll see.
Yeah, and I also about this scene with Viv and Phil. She talks about being burnt out. She was burnt out. Well, he kind of brings it up. He says that he kind of helped her out because she was burnt out.
Yeah.
Feeling like she was in a system that wasn't built for her as an artist. And that's what I was saying earlier about
Yeah.
it crosses over all industries. It doesn't matter how well a Black woman is doing something, or a woman of color,
Yeah.
for that matter. Sometimes the systems it just keeps rejecting, and you just feel burnt out, and you're on a gerbil wheel, and
I
we'll find out what happened,
yeah,
hopefully.
I totally get it. I mean, as a Latino creator, on
Mhm.
my side, as a Latino male creator, I always marvel at how much work I have to do just to be able to get seen. Well,
Yes.
white creators who have way less of a social media following than I do are
Yes.
able to book these
Mhm.
directors and actors and producers, and I keep getting told for junkets,
Mhm.
"Oh, there wasn't enough time, or we couldn't find a
Mhm.
slot for you," and it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know how much harder I have to work. And people are always saying, Rocha, you do so much. And I go, yeah, because the
Yeah.
system demands that I do so much so I can
Mhm.
get seen and I can
Mhm.
get heard. And, some of my issues when I was at Collider stemmed from the fact that I wanted to be on everything because
Mhm.
I wanted to learn how to do this. And
Mhm.
other people who were there who were white were like, why are you want to be on everything? And it's like, you don't
Mhm.
get it. You
Yeah.
don't understand what it's like to be a person of color. We have to fight to be on everything because you
Mhm.
never know who's going to see you, and you never know how much you got to learn here in this situation, and if you'll have the opportunity to do so again. So it's
Yeah.
just those kinds of things that it's all about perception and understanding. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm so glad you brought that up. It's because it's so true.
yeah, yeah,
And I was speaking on a red carpet the other day with someone who was voicing those same issues. And
yeah,
this is a red carpet for a Black series. And it's so
yeah,
there's still issues with Black media, and we very briefly just shared a
yeah,
couple little words, but the point is that 2020 happened, and so much was exposed as to what needs to change.
right,
And those conversations continue, they need to continue to happen, because it's 2022, and
yeah,
we need to like completely break this stereotype that people of color people of color in the media are less than
yeah,
a larger outlet that is white owned. It just needs to change. And
yeah,
the young woman was saying that someone could be a blogger today and just completely blow up into the next best thing tomorrow. So I think people in the industry need to continue to open their eyes and to look at the numbers, and look at the people that they're saying no to compared to the people that keep getting the yeses,
yeah,
and to just continue to um break down that wall.
yeah,
It's just we're gonna keep having to have those conversations, and I'm gonna continue to be outspoken about it,
yeah,
because you
ditto.
just have to. Sometimes, like I said in our past reviews, that people are like, oh, we already did that, done that. Yeah, we're diverse. See those three people there. you know,
Yeah,
it's it took so many hundreds of years to get to the place that we are,
right,
with discrimination in America. It's not going to just you can't just wipe that off
yeah,
in 1 year. Everyone collaboratively has to keep working at it.
yeah.
So
That's why
yeah.
this is why I work really hard on my channel to have
Yes.
co-hosts that are women, that are of color, so you show that there is diversity out there, and the shows showcase that, and it's a positive. And we're having this conversation. I know we got to move on, but we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
This stuff is brought up here in Bel-Air, which I really
Mhm.
appreciate about this show. They confront these things, and we're going to get into Carlton stuff with the police as well. But they
Yeah.
confront these things, and I'm going to have something to say about that too. So let's keep
Yeah.
going.
So much to talk about. So we're gonna jump into Carlton, and basically he is having an altercation on the lacrosse field.
Yeah,
Connor has said something to him that was racially motivated, to
yeah,
say he wasn't performing, and I guess they're pushing Carlton to a scrub team, or practice, and he's saying, oh, maybe we'll get this, we'll have lacrosse to ourselves. In other words, less Black people.
yeah.
And he gets into an altercation. He ends up breaking Connor's ankle or something,
His wrist.
his wrist. But yeah, those comments, I've heard them, not in my immediate family, but I'm saying I've heard them at other people's Thanksgiving gathering about the NBA having too many people of color.
Yeah.
So these comments are, they just happen. So
Yeah.
what did you think of Carlton's, coming of age, where he's now understanding kind of what Will was talking about early on. Like, you are in this, bubble, but you have to respect yourself. You can't have people running all over you.
Yeah. And, it's Will has been this, as we said earlier, this in other reviews, Will has been this shining light that has exposed the cracks in this family that had been papered over for years. And now these things are being seen. And Carlton certainly finally seeing how he's dealt with, as Lisa called the microaggressions, how he's dealt with kind of shoving this casual racism, which can be some of the worst racism, because these people are supposedly your friends, but they still feel that they can say certain words or do certain things or say certain things and not understand that you're maybe going along, because to not go along means to confront an entire team of people, fellow classmates, fellow workmates, who will make fun of you or shun you or isolate you if you have an issue with it and don't go along with it. And so you may look at Connor's comment there, was at least they won't take lacrosse from us, as some kind of cheesy line to put in there. But people of color will tell you that's not cheesy. That's real. That actually happens. And you hear it multiple times, sometimes in a day, from different people, or you hear it as a rhetoric in political speeches or whatever. You hear it as rhetoric from business owners, from businesses who give lip service but don't act, but then contribute to other causes that are against your color, against your community. Those things happen as well. So Connor's saying that, and you're seeing an awakening here from Carlton, and has that confrontation later with Connor in the pool room, in the game room, when John, the Asian character on the team, is trying to get them to squash their beef, come together, and the whole team kind of turns on Connor a little bit, which is a powerful moment for Carlton to find his own voice within his own teammates, because that was his fear throughout the episode here was, well, if I'm not this group and I'm not part of the black group, who am I? And so he's got to figure out where he stands. And I forget the young character's name, the young lady he was trying to have a connection with. She told him, well, everyone thought you were a sellout. Everyone thinks you're a sellout because of what you've done. And he kind of countered and said, well, does it mean I have to do these things just to be considered black? Which is also something, of course, I can't speak to it too deeply. I'm sure you can, Nikki, this idea of what is black, what isn't black within the black community. We have that within the Latino community for sure. So that happens in certain forms in our community. And so you see that having these interactions, and Carlton in the end does find a way to stand on his own 2 feet. And I really appreciated the acting from Ollie in this episode as well. I mean, stepping up, confronting these things, and then navigating them as you go in between being insecure and strong, insecure and strong as the episode goes along. It's really fantastic what they're doing. He's slowly becoming my favorite character. Not because I don't love Will or anything, but the acting here and the conflict that they've given Ollie to play here has been great to watch him navigate as an actor.
Yeah, same. I love his performance. I love his character. Yeah. And so again, like Connor's statements, it just made me think of, Black Lives Matter and Colin Kaepernick and the NFL. And, it's not just, conversations, out in public. These are really heavy issues that we've been confronting over the past couple of years. Colin basically couldn't even get a job in the NFL. So these things are said all the time. And so, yeah, it's great that he's, diving into who he is as a Black man. Yeah. And yeah, so jumping onto that, I always say, this whole black card thing where who's passing them out? Because if you don't know me, please, so judgment, there is judgment. I mean, I've had, even during 2020, everyone was just in a rush to say things on social media. Yeah. And if you don't know someone, just to jump up, I mean, I've had white women who looked at my profile photo and said, I had no right to speak on Breonna Taylor or certain aspects because they thought I was white. And I'm like, where did you get that from? Like, you need to, wipe those goggles off. Yeah, yeah. And I had, a community of people jumping in to say, hey, hold on, like, let's not do that. This judgment that comes with just, that has to do with social media too, where someone's just jumping on social media, making a judgment call about someone, not knowing where they're from, not knowing their story. So I always say, as far as, don't be quick to pass out the black card. And someone like Carlton, who has struggled with kind of being a quote unquote sellout,
Right.
and in his eyes, he didn't see it that way. He just looked at it, and I believe we discussed this on past reviews,
Mhm.
where these are the people that are going to shape who he is in the
Yeah.
future. So he's trying to navigate it, and really not even understanding the ramifications of what he's allowing.
Yeah.
So he's a special mix, but I do see that conversation with the young girl saying, well, you like these things and we don't see you showing up and showing out for us. So, sometimes you have to call a spade, but yeah, so there's that
Mhm.
muddy water. So those are like
Yeah.
some of the scenarios that happens when we get into some of this conversation with the young girl who Carlton almost had an interest in. I was kind of rooting for him, like, yes, that Will kind of hooked him up, and then it just went south. So,
Yeah.
but he's learning, and that's the best part about it. He's absolutely learning more about himself and who he is, as a Black man.
Yeah, and I'm glad the show isn't defaulting to the cliche of a soap opera and having him run back to snort Xanax every time he's not, happy or he's unstable or he's not sure. I like that the show is letting him grow and confronting these topics, and they're not afraid to confront these topics and have these conversations. So I enjoy that when we're navigating this Carlton's journey here in the show. It's so good.
Mhm. Yeah, and then jumping into the party,
Yeah.
really kind of blowing up. I'm going to put up a visual. Um, let's see here. This very, very
Yeah.
this scene. It's really not easy to see, to watch scenes like that, because it's so triggering. Basically, Connor, once again, he already set up Will with
Yeah.
planting. We believe, yeah, he did. He admitted he planted drugs of some
Yeah.
kind on Will early on, and just this goes beyond barbecue Becky. This is actually something that could get a Black man killed, and
Yep.
so here he is doing it again and calling the police on the party,
Yeah.
thinking that this is funny. Doesn't even, he's completely tone deaf on the fact that he again could have gotten someone killed.
Mhm.
I could speak from experience that Black people, like, we can't even have a children's birthday party sometimes without somebody calling the police. So, I mean, you could have Cirque du Soleil, flamethrower dancers. You could invite the whole neighborhood to eat. I mean, it doesn't matter. There will be someone that is going to call the police on your party. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it has. I mean, I would say, it's really hard for me to count the parties that someone didn't complain. So it's bringing up the issue of Black people having a right to exist in America, just to live a normal life without being monitored or being, just anyway. It's a very emotional scene to watch. And Carlton's reflection of just, he's so nonchalant, came down the steps like, oh, I live here, everything's fine.
Yeah.
And he handcuffed, or he was
He was put up against the wall.
he was,
Yeah.
he was basically like seen as a threat in his own home. And
Yeah.
what's more like eye-opening than that, where all of the money that your family has cannot protect you.
Yeah.
And that happens, when Black people, we leave the house, we have to think all the time, and our children, we school them on how to react. You've heard this conversation. So many people have
Yeah.
shared what we go through, and it's too much. It's too much. It's not a good way to have to navigate through life.
Yeah. I'll say this: my best friend growing up, and still my best friend now, a Black man who's a city manager. He was a city manager of Charlottesville when all that stuff went down. He's a city manager over at Chapel Hill now. One of the most clean-cut Black men you'll ever see, incredibly intelligent, whatever. He's been pulled over twice for driving while Black. And that kind of situation happens. He's confronted those situations. And, if you have Black friends, open your eyes, open your ears, hear their stories. They're not lying. There are this happens on a daily basis. And we're having this conversation this morning here, Nikki, when TMZ has released the 911 call and the video of Ryan Coogler being arrested at a Bank of America for cashing a check or pulling some money out of his own account with his ID, with his PIN number there in the bank, and he was put in handcuffs. Ryan Coogler, the director of Black Panther. That tells you the kind of struggles that Black people have to go through in this country, no matter how successful. He had a film nominated for Best Picture 4 years ago, and still he has to confront this kind of situation from the police, and to be truthful here, from a Black teller who thought he looked weird. And so those things that it's such a difficult existence and a frustratingly tough existence that you hear about, and you can't help but feel, if you have any semblance of care in your heart, sympathy for these situations, and also thank God that you're not a person who has to be subject to that on the same level. Certainly Latinos and other people of color do experience that, but not to the level that Black people seem to experience this in the country, male or female, experience it in this country for sure. And you're seeing it here as it's playing out in the party. When the police show up, Carlton is the first one, as you said, immediately talking to them, speaking with them respectfully, saying, guys, it's okay. This is my party. It's my house. We're just having a party, blah, blah, blah. And he dares to move closer out of respect to the police officer, and the police officer immediately reaches for his gun behind him and tells him not to take one more step. And that's not a white police officer. That's a Latino police officer with another Asian police officer. And so this idea that the LAPD is just a white face, it isn't. It's a bunch of faces who see Black people as a threat, who see sometimes their fellow Black people as a threat when you're talking about a Black police officer. So those are the kinds of situations that he's confronting. And God forbid if Carlton had reached into his pocket to get his ID, who knows what would have happened to him if that had been his action. Because certainly we've seen that happen as well. So once again, the show is not afraid to present and confront these situations. And you may look at it and be like, oh, it's kind of cheesy, a little simplistic. You have no idea because you've never been through it. If you're not a Black person in this country, some of these things, you never heard the stories of some of these situations and how they come about. And you're shocked when you find out how they come about and how simplistic the situation could have been and how it wasn't handled correctly by police in those situations. They immediately reached for their weapons. I don't know how many stories I've been hearing lately about white people reaching for their weapons or taking off with cops in their trucks hanging out of the side, and they never get shot. But no, it's Black people who are always arrested, getting shot. I mean, why was Coogler put in handcuffs, for God's sakes? It's ridiculous. You just have the conversation with him, check his ID, make sure it's cool, and you roll on. But no, you got to put him in handcuffs. These are the things that you look at and you go, there's no way there's not a double standard here in this country. And it's coming to a breaking point. And again, I love the show confronting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything you just said is so true. And it things like this, it happens in the industry as well. Are these Black bodies supposed to be here? I'm a very tall woman, and so
yes,
I get I get that all the time. Are you supposed to be here? Are you And it's like, wow. Here's the wristband. It's a lot, and so and again, like you said, it could seem so simplistic watching this storyline, but people should take the time to really kind of think about it and not just gloss over that this is just in there, for a buzzword or just, just to kind of, it's still happening. So hopefully, even in the entertainment industry, we'll see some change happening. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, as time goes on and more conversations are had, that people of color and Black-owned media will get the respect that they deserve, outside of, I know we're talking about police and parties, but just as far as bias is concerned and access, we've talked about that a lot on this review. So, and we had one surprise with, Lisa basically said, I can fix the situation. Her father's the chief of police and she can go and clean everything up. And Will's like, oh no, then they'll know we're together. And she goes down and she stops this harassment of Carlton by the police. and he's just looking with dread because, he was hesitating before going upstairs because he
Yeah.
had a feeling that they were there. So what did you think of that little
Well,
reveal?
I love they threw the head. I did not expect the hesitation. That was great. The hesitation is like, do I really want to know? That's the
Yeah.
moment, right? And I love that. I've rarely seen that in shows where you have the character that you're following all of a sudden have that moment of, do I go up there? Because if I go up there, am I ready for the answer? And it was great. And before he got up there, of course, the police show up and he's like, confront this thing. And throughout the whole this episode, this idea of Lisa and Will kind of hiding their relationship, the police chief, her dad, asking her to essentially stay away from Will or to spy on Will, either one of the two, to help him in his own campaign. So you've got almost like a Romeo and Juliet kind of situation happening between Will and Lisa, where they're sneaking around in their respective families to be together. And then in the end, they have to come clean, in essence, after what I assume, Nikki, is some sex. I imagine it seems like they alluded to the fact that they had sex or some heavy petting. I mean, just the way she was physically asking them to come over, it seemed like they were inferring sex. So certainly there's now an even stronger bond and connection between Will even says, you're my woman, you're my girl, and so there's a real deep love developing between these two that Carlton is going to have to confront. And in that moment, he sees the shame on Will's face, he sees the uncomfortable look on Lisa's face, and has to come to terms with it. So I wonder how this relationship is going to be yet another thing Carlton has to kind of navigate and overcome. And in the end, I have a feeling the show is putting him through all the stuff they're putting him through so they can give him some semblance of a happy ending, some strength by the end of the season as we go into a season 2, which I hope is coming here. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah. And also with Carlton and, his struggling with his identity, I wanted to go back to that a little bit more. Well, I first noticed that, Lisa, when she was looking at the trophies and things in Will's room, she noticed all the, some of the Black authors that he had, Audre Lorde. And, he basically said Uncle Phil gave those books to him. So I was wondering, did Carlton get the same books? Like, is he reading Langston Hughes? Because it doesn't seem like it, So, that was really interesting. And, we see him, Will explaining that he grew up with the Black church. He grew up in the Black community with Black friends. And, Lisa's explaining it's not the same in Bel-Air, and the way Carlton was raised, where, he's almost, I don't want to say more exposed, but, he's in the pit of microaggressions daily, being in, a predominantly white school. And, it just says a lot about trying to understand the different perspectives of what it is to be Black. And, I love that the show focuses on that there isn't one narrative to being Black. And it's just opening all of these, layers up into, Carlton's identity. So that was pretty cool. So,
yeah, I mean, there's a great, I'm a big Public Enemy fan, and there's a great song, Rebirth. And I brought up the lyrics here because he said, these days you can't see who's in cahoots because now the KKK wears 3-piece suits. And that's the microaggression that you're talking about, is you see people who are well-dressed who are making these comments, see people who are well off and are successful and rich and they're white and making these comments. What is the need to step on people of color when you have achieved so much, or you've been born into so much wealth, born into these kinds of situations? Why do you need? We certainly see it daily on one side of the political spectrum, the stepping on people of color or those of lower financial status and claiming and painting them as this kind of thing. And to me, it's always so frustrating to see the microaggression as it comes out, sometimes macroaggression, sometimes aggressive aggression in terms of the rhetoric. And I'm always fascinated by this because they're the same people who say, we need to be kind to each other. We need to come together. We need to be unified. And you can't be unified when you're, insulting an entire swath, millions upon millions of people and painting them with one brush. And that's something that you see. And I love that Lisa here is speaking to Will about Carlton's experience. And she, for all the missteps Carlton has made with her that we've seen in the season, she still cares for him as a person and understands and respects what he's been through. And Lisa probably a little bit has been sheltered by it because her dad is the chief of police. So people might be hesitant to say anything to offend her. But with Carlton, maybe they felt it was easier, and because he kind of went along with it. And so you see him kind of slowly swallowing it step by step by step. And eventually there is a breaking point. And certainly Lisa's trying to get Will to understand Carlton, just as Will was trying to get Carlton to understand Will, and Will doesn't tell the truth to Lisa, though, about his situation, about how it came over here. So that's going to lead to something down the road too, people, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. This secret that he's hiding. And Uncle Phil had a good point when he said, the closer you get to someone, the more you'll feel inclined to, share with them. So he's definitely struggling with that. You want to start a relationship off on a good note and be honest. And he's kind of like, oh, well, yeah, not just her, but her father, and then, getting Uncle Phil into problems for whatever help he did to get Will to Bel-Air. So a lot going on. So that's all the time we have for today. It was amazing, breaking this episode down with you. So everyone, please like and subscribe. Again, leave us comments and let us know what you thought of episode 7, as well as our review. And, we'll see you next time. John, where can everyone find you?
Oh, yeah. You can always find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, The Outlaw Nation on Twitch, and my YouTube channel, The Outlaw Nation Outlet, is there, youtube.com/John Rocha Says, for all the stuff we got going on there as well.
Awesome. And you can find me at Glitter Magazine anywhere on social, as well as Nikki Fowler 28. It was a pleasure, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.